Welcome back to Police Academy Prep. This is Deputy Z, and today we will be going through our field training series focused on preparing you for FTO/FTD. There will be 4 phases in the field training series, and this video is the second phase in the series. Make sure to go back and listen to the field training overview and prep video and phase 1 video before this one, as it provides more insight into the series and prepares you for phase 2. So right now, you're either fresh out of the academy, either in a post-academy type phase, or you're preparing for field training, or you're about to successfully complete phase 1 of FTO, and you're now trying to prep for phase 2, this video is intended to give you some insight as to what to expect going into phase 2 here. Deputy G-Man will be back as a featured guest for phase 3 and 4 of the series, but let's go ahead and jump into phase 2. I've titled phase 2 as quote-unquote learning the extras, as that best defines this phase. The reason I say that is because for most of you, phase 1 was mostly an observation-styled phase coupled with learning the basic foundation of real police work. Now that you got a taste of what the road is like, phase 2 is where you begin taking charge. So to start off, let's talk about daily observation reports and grading. I created a couple videos on the daily observation grading rubric report that they use to score you while on field training. I would recommend, if you have not, to go back and watch that video as I go into detail about what FTOs are grading you on and looking for. Now, with phase 1, FTOs are generally more lenient with their grading, as you're still finding your footing and you're learning 1,000 things at once. So they know you're going to be overwhelmed. Phase 2, I would say the grading officially begins. I would really maybe say the last 2 weeks of phase 1, but let's just go ahead and say phase 2, you really have to expect the grading to be more strict. Anything you were taught in phase 1 is fair game to be graded much more harshly, as you'll be expected to know how to do the things you already taught moving forward. And an extra point I'd like to add on there is, when you're taught something, especially phase 2 and moving forward, you need to either A, remember it and don't forget it, or B, write it down and document it. Because I would say one of an FTO's biggest pet peeve would be when they show you something and then a couple hours later or the next day or a couple days later you're asking the same exact question again, because that means they taught you how to do something, and for you it might just be an easy forget, but for them it's, hey, I taught him something and he doesn't care enough to remember, right? And they could be thinking with that mindset. So I would recommend, if you ask a question and maybe it's not super common sense, that you need to write it in your notes, put it on your laptop, write it down in your little notebook if you think it's something that you'll use again in the future, or you might need the answer to again in the future. So if you say, hey, I don't know where to find this information, and they give you a website saying, hey, this is where you do it, step 1, 2, 3, you better put that in your notes. Here's the website to the link. Step 1, click here. Step 2, click there. Step 3, find the information, right? Because if it's something you need and you go back and ask them, hey, I really need this again, they're going to be like, dude, I sent you the link. Like, I told you how to do it. What's going on, right? And then boom, now you got a 2 for, I don't know, something on the DWAR, right? So just on top of that, if you show that your FTO might realize, okay, I told him how to do that, and then you do it without help the next time, he's going to say, wow, okay, I taught him something. He's taking it in, he's absorbing it, he's learning it, and he doesn't need my help anymore. Ideally, that's what an FTO wants to see. They want to see that you no longer need their help, because that is the end goal, right? That is the end goal by phase 4. You are off, you're on your own, and you'll still need help, but you won't need that daily observing and watching over your shoulder style to help, right? So again, grading really begins, especially things you've already known, and write things down. In regards to writing things down and documenting things, like I said in phase 1, if you filled out any forms, if you submitted any documents, whether that's evidence, affidavits, things online, your arrest forms, paperwork, boxes you had to fill out, a Baker Act form, a traffic crash form, just take a picture real quick on your phone. Save it under an album titled FTD, FTO, something like that. That way you can go back and, shoot, I did a Baker Act, but I forget which boxes to check based on which. You go back to your album, you go back to your photo album under FTD, you see the Baker Act photos, and you say, oh, okay, so I press that button, this button, that button. And it looks like, wow, he's only done one Baker Act, and here he is doing the second one, and he didn't ask me for one thing, right? And that's really great. You'll get some good reviews on that one there. So the next thing, More confidence. I know we spoke a lot about confidence in the first video. Make sure that confidence goes up even more because you are learning more things. You are becoming more knowledgeable of the job. So your confidence should grow with that knowledge. Whether that be speaking to people better, learning things easier, being able to find information faster, more efficiently, talking to your FTD, or FTO, coming up with solutions to problems faster and easier because you have more resources now, things like that. So confidence, of course, always a big one. The next thing we'll cover, as with every phase, you have a new FTO, field training officer now. First thing you need to do, that first day, first week, ask them what they expect from you. Tell them, hey, this is what I learned in phase 1. This is kind of what we did. Now that I'm on phase 2, what do you expect from me moving forward? I know I need to continue putting in the work and continue working hard and continue learning, but specifically to you, how would you like me to improve? And then ask, hey, can we go over the observation report, whatever it's called for your agency, and can you just go through each one and show me what each one means to you so I know what you expect? One, that's a good icebreaker. 2, it shows you're willing to adapt and learn their style, which people can obviously appreciate. With a new FTD, you're going to have a new zone. So with a new zone, you need to learn, well, most likely you have a new zone, not always, but you'll probably have a new zone, new streets, new area, new businesses, new residential areas. You'll have new problem areas, things along that line, right? So just keep that in mind that, ask, hey, where are our problem areas? Hey, make sure you know where the school's at, the hospital's at, your landmarks, your major streets that cross through your zone. You should know the entire district, but you should know the zone a little more intimately because that is yours. The next thing I would say in regards to your partners and your partner's call signs, learn those. You might be on a different shift. You might be on a night shift instead of a day shift or vice versa. And you maybe have new partners, new call signs. Learn those. That way, when you're with a partner and the partner says, "Hey, let them know I'm here on the call with you," and you're like, "Oh," you come over and you say your call sign. "Oh, 4 Alpha 7, I'm with," and you're like, "Oh shoot, I don't know his name. I don't know his call sign." You got to go ask him, "Hey, what's your call sign again?" You look a little bit like an idiot, right? And you want to avoid looking like an idiot as much as you can. I would say that's a pretty big job on field training, but regardless, learn the partners, learn the call signs, get to know them because they are your backup and they are the people. Your lives rely on them and their lives rely on you. So just keep that in mind. Now with a new zone and potentially a new shift, you're going to have potentially a new sergeant as well. In regards to the new shift, I would recommend getting phone numbers, start getting to know people closely, know your sergeant, get his phone number. With a new shift, you might have to reintroduce yourself all over again. So just have your introduction spiel ready for each phase. Hey, this is my name. This is where I came from. This is what I'm doing. These are my goals here. I'm excited to work with you guys. Like I said in the first video, don't make it too short of an intro, but not too long of an intro, right? So introduce yourself again. And then you're also going to have to impress a new set of people. So again, possibly a whole new sergeant, a whole new squad of 5 to 20 people, depending on your squad size. And you do kind of have to impress people. You don't have to look like a super cop, but you got to look capable, right? It's got to be reasonable. You got to be capable, and people will see through that. Everyone knows you're new. That's fine, but they just want to know that you're willing to learn and you're capable. All right, so the next thing under phase 2 would be to start taking charge. So phase 1, obviously depending on what type of trainer you had, it's possible day 1 you got thrown into the fire and you've been pounding in the dirt since. Or the flip side, you observed for your first 2 weeks, you didn't write no reports, you weren't barely on the radio, you just watched everything and you started easing into it. You got 2 flip sides there, right? Regardless of what phase 1 you got, your phase 2, you really need to start taking charge, whether that be charge in general or taking more charge. So with taking charge, that's, of course, when you first walk up to a call, don't hide behind your trainer. You jump out of the car, you walk up, obviously officer safety, you walk up, you be the first one to speak to the victim, the witness, the suspect, so on. You start asking the open-ended questions. Hey, tell me what's going on today. How can I help? My name is, Deputy Z. Introduce yourself and let your FTD or FTO just watch and observe, right? So ideally, that's what you want to do, especially starting into phase 2. And that'll really impress your new trainer. The first call you go to, you jump out of the car, you don't look back at him, you don't whatever, you just walk up, you ask the questions, you take down names, and you move on to the next. He's going to be like, okay, wow, all right. He knows what he's doing. Even if you don't 100% know what you're doing and you're still kind of second guessing and you're trying to figure things out, that's where that confidence comes in, makes it look like you know what you're doing, and that's what they want to see. They can teach you the little intricacies and the things you forgot, but look like you know what you're doing, right? Radio and your computer with dispatch. So you need to start taking control of the radio at this point. Maybe your phase 1 didn't let you have the radio at all, or maybe it was very minor. You really need to start taking control. Like I said, know your call sign, know your partner's call signs, know your codes and signals, be able to communicate effectively and also listen effectively. Like I spoke about in phase 1 video, it's impossible to listen to everything on the radio, especially in phase 2. Even now, I can't listen to everything. But you listen for things that pique your interest, right? So you're listening for your call sign. You're listening for your partner's call sign. You're listening for the word gun. You're listening for the word weapon. You're listening for the word disturbance. You're listening for fight, for shooting, for stabbing. You're listening for like hot words almost. And then once your brain hears a hot word, it turns on, and then you start listening from that point on. So that's just a little tip and trick that you don't have to, if you're driving, you got your computer, the radio's going on, your FTO's asking you questions about whatever, you can't do all that and listen to every single word on the radio. So again, hot topics, keywords, listen for that, right? When it comes to your computer, where you get dispatch calls, read your notes, read all the information while driving. One thing that I learned, because I was taught, I didn't realize this till phase 2, is a lot of times you get dispatched to a call, they say, hey, go here, they'll read you the notes, but you're driving, you're doing this and that, your FTO is talking about whatever, you might not get all the notes, you don't fully understand. Before you get there, read the notes fully. You might have missed something important. You might have missed that there was a weapon. That's good to know. You might have missed that, hey, there's 3 suspects. You thought there was 1. You might miss that it was a blue car, and then as you're driving up, you pass a blue car, and your FTO's like, hey, by the way, what was the color of the car we were supposed to be looking for? And you're like, I don't really know. And then now, he's like, oh, we just passed a blue car. Why don't you read the computer real quick, the dispatch call, and see what color it was? And then now you look like an idiot, right? So once you get dispatched, whether you're at a red light, you're eating somewhere, you're sitting down somewhere, you're chilling under a tree, or you're driving, find a time to look at the call. Try to remember the description as best you can of the suspect, of the subject, of the victim. Remember the description of the vehicle if possible. Any other weapons, details, what type of weapons, is it in his pocket, is it in his hand, things like that. Learn the details so that you don't miss things as you pull up. Or maybe it's an officer safety thing where they say, oh, the radio, hey, approach from the rear because the suspect is doing whatever in the front. And then here you are, approaching in the front because maybe you did hear that part, but by the time it's a 5-10 minute drive, and then this happens, someone ran a red light in front of you, almost hit your car, FTO's asking you questions about the call, and then you totally forget, you pull right up in the front, and your FTO's like, hey, you didn't hear what happened? So just read the notes at least once before you go, and then preferably as you're down the street, maybe even read them again, because you'll be surprised. Either A, you'll miss something, or 2, they'll update notes, but dispatch won't tell you the updated notes. So you might get notes, hey, suspect description, this is what's happening, it's a theft, and then you're on your way. 3 minutes later, an update comes over the computer saying the suspect was last seen with a black handgun firearm, and they didn't put over the radio because maybe the dispatcher's busy, and you didn't catch it because maybe you weren't paying attention. Maybe your FTO catches it, and he's like, hey, why didn't you catch this? And you're like, oh, I just didn't read it because I was driving. That's not an excuse, right? That's not an excuse, and that is an officer safety thing. You'll get a ding on your officer safety. So, but if you say, hey, trainer, so-and-so, look, we just seen updated in the system here. It says that they got a firearm. He's gonna be like, oh, shoot, okay, good catch. Yeah, that's a good one. And then, boom, now your grading goes up, right? So That is a big one with the computer system, whatever they call it for you guys. Ours is the CAD system. Be aware of the notes. Be aware of the details. Know which of your partners is going to the call, and slow down. So you get a call, you're hyped, you're driving, the radio, this and that. You're talking to your trainer, trying not to get in an accident. You're trying to get there quickly, but not too quickly. You're trying not to crash. You're trying to drive safe. All these things are going through your mind. Slow down, like I said. Read the notes. Figure out what you got. It's better you arrive safely and you do your call safely than endanger yourself, endanger your trainer, endanger your partners. Okay, so that's the radio. And I spoke about the computer a lot there. So that's your radio and your computer and taking control of those, okay? So next topic here is to, how do I word this? Basically do it all, double check it at the end, and then have your trainer look at it. So I know probably in phase 1, he might have introduced you to some report writing. Maybe you did a traffic crash report. Maybe you did a Baker Act. Maybe you did a normal, theft report, burglary delayed report, robbery report, so and so. And he kind of taught you how to fill in boxes, how to put in victim suspect information, etc. Maybe you already got this in phase 1, but if you didn't, especially in phase 2, you need to do everything that you can from what you remember. And hopefully you took pictures of how to fill out these things. And you can just pull them up and copy and paste, make sure everything matches and lines up right. So if you're going to do, let's say, a theft report, okay, your trainer already showed you how to use your report system. You fill in the boxes, put in the names, do everything you think you know how to do. And then I'm assuming generally your trainer will look over all of your information before it's submitted. It's generally what they should do. So don't be like, hey, what do I put here? And then you're typing, doing this, blah, blah, blah. And then a minute later, hey, this and that. No. Finish everything you can and then come back and be like, hey, I did everything that I remember how to do and that I remember documenting, but I came across this and I either haven't done it before or I haven't done it in 5-6 weeks. Can you just double check it for me? And then ask him those 3 things you had then versus every minute and a half you're asking him a new question. So do everything you can. Come back, double check it with your photos, how you documented stuff, and then come back, right? So then that'll be the do it all, double check it, fill in your boxes. Like for a traffic crash, right? In Florida, you got a whole bunch of boxes. Do as much as you can. Don't ask them every box what you need to do. Now, in regards to report writing. So again, phase 1, did you write reports? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you wrote a couple. Maybe he made you write them on his laptop, so it's not saved on your laptop, because phase 2, you're probably going to have full control with your laptop. So if you are writing reports, hopefully you documented your types of reports. You documented your probable cause affidavits. That way you can go back and look at how you structured them. Make sure your reports are clean, structured well. If you need to use something like Grammarly, sometimes that's better than submitting something with a whole bunch of punctuation issues. What else about writing reports? I would like to say when it comes to reports, I don't recall if I mentioned this in the phase 1 video or the overview video, but I would highly recommend, I think I did, create a folder on your laptop titled reports. Every time you write a certain type of report, let's just say it's a theft at a Walgreens. Let's just say the signal for theft in your agency is 30, right? I would save that report. I would put 30. I would put Walgreens. So either write theft Walgreens or 30 Walgreens or whatever your call sign is for a theft, and then save it to that album. Let's just say then you get a theft. Let's say it was a Craigslist exchange and somebody stole something out of the back of somebody's car. You could write, exchange theft, right, between 2 parties. Or if you had a theft at a home, somebody stole something out of a mailbox, right? Or you get my point. Every different type of theft, maybe it's a theft at a Walmart, right? Theft Walmart. That way, if you have another theft at the Walmart, you pop open that report, or the Walgreens, you pop open that report, you essentially, I wouldn't recommend copying and pasting, because if you paste the wrong information, you forget to change it. That's a big no-no. So I would mirror it. I'd open that one, open a blank one, look at that one, but type in all of your information for this one. That way, you don't, because what you don't want to do is he shows you how to do a theft report in phase 1, and then phase 2, you come back, and you're like, hey, trainer, I know there's something I'm forgetting in this report, but I just can't remember it. And he's like, oh, well, did you add into the report that you got the receipt and you documented that and submitted it to evidence totaling $300 in property? And you're like, oh, that's what it was. Okay, yeah. And then he's sitting there like, you know what I mean? Like, I've already told you this. That's a real critical part of the report. You shouldn't forget that, right? Where if you had a different theft report and you pulled it up, you would see you're copying the structure. So every time you save a robbery report, you saved a burglary report, you save a theft report, you save a Baker Act report, what you are documenting is not the words, you're documenting the structure, what you included. Did you include, so for a theft, did you include, obviously you'll start at the location, why you were there, how you got there, when you got there. Then you're going to say who you met with, whether store, business, the person's testimony to what happened, the description of the suspect. Then it's going to be, here are the items that were stolen, how much the items were valued at, and then it's going to go to, okay, I got the receipt from the manager of the Walgreens that was submitted to evidence. And then you're going to talk about how maybe you recovered, then maybe the next step would be you found, let's just say, a roll of paper towel that was stolen that the suspect dropped was submitted as evidence or whatever. You would talk about how you have other types of evidence. And then from there, you could then maybe talk about how the manager wants to press charges, and then how you talked about Marcy's Law, and then how you gave him a case card, and then etc. It's the structure of, because everything you include in one theft report is usually going to be the same on every other theft report, unless there's some extra weird scenario that requires an extra step. So that is the biggest thing, is save every type of report. Now, let's just say you have a theft for the Walgreens report. If you do another theft for the Walgreens report, don't save that one. You already have that. You don't need a second one. So if it's something new or something different, create a new report, put it in that reports folder. That way, at this point, I have like 150 reports with almost every scenario you could ever have. Almost every scenario, from, shooting, rapes, this and that. It's all in one folder. So if I ever have one again, I just pop that thing up. I know what questions I was supposed to ask. I know how to document everything. Bing, bong, boom. Piece of cake, right? So that's a big one. That's helped a lot of people. Next thing here. So when you go up to a victim or the person, the complainant, the caller, and you're getting their information, date of birth, name, driver's license number, social security number, whatever you're asking for, the biggest thing I would say do not forget is their phone number, for a couple reasons. The first reason, detectives got to follow up. People have to follow up. Specialized units, you might have to follow up. The next reason, and the main one, is for you to follow up. You get that phone number correct. If you forgot to ask for a date of birth, if you forgot to ask for the color of the suspect's hat that they already told you, if you forgot any little piece of information, all you do is you pop up your Google Voice or your whatever app or software you use to use a different number, or you do your star 67 to do a blocked call. You call them up and say, hey, this is Deputy Z. I was with you about a half hour ago. You mentioned that the suspect was wearing a hat, right? Yeah, okay. What color was that? Okay, it was blue with this logo on it. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Because if you don't do that, and then your trainer says, hey, I'm reading your report, and how come you didn't put the color of his t-shirt on there? And you go, oh man, I forgot. Your trainer's going to look at you and he's going to say, well, drive back there and you better hope they're home. And if they're not, then you're going to have to put in your report that you forgot. And then you're going to look like an idiot, right? Like I said, you don't want to look like an idiot. So get that phone number, and don't be afraid to call victims, because you don't really have time to go back. They might not be there. Maybe it happened at a store and they went home already, right? If you don't have that phone number, you have no way to contact them. What if you forgot a vital piece of information? What if the victim gave you the suspect's first and last name? Let's just say you wrote it down, and while you're getting ready to do your report or type it in the law enforcement database to find who he is, you spill something, you spill water, whatever, it smears the ink, you can't see it no more, you lose your page, whatever, and that's vital information. And you're like, oh man, where'd that go? Oh, let me go back to the Walgreens, see if she's there. She's not there. You don't have a phone number. Maybe you didn't get the address of where she lives, or maybe it was an old address because that was what was on the ID. It wasn't updated on her driver's license. And now you don't have a suspect's name. You could have closed this case out. You could have helped the detective, and now you look like an idiot. So again, phone number is huge. And then having some sort of software or star 67 to call them blocked is big. And don't, like I said, don't be afraid, because it's going to look good if you all of a sudden are calling the victim back and he's like, hey, why are you calling her? And like, hey, I just forgot this piece of information, or I can't read it here on my thing, the certain number she gave me. I'm calling her back to get that information. They'll be like, all right, 1, he's taking initiative. 2, he's got the number and he's not scared to call her, to ask back, etc. So that's a good look. I mean, you forgot something, so you're going to have that negative, but you're going to have the positive of you're doing something about it. So that's one thing you don't want to miss, is the phone number, because if you misspell the driver's license number, then you're not going to find the person. Too long of a digit there. But if you have the phone number, then you call them back and say, hey, I didn't write down your first name and date of birth and last name because I had your driver's license number, but it looks like I misspelled it. Can you just confirm that for me real quick? Boom, you're good to go. So do not be afraid to call victims for information. And let them know at the end of the call, when you're done talking with them, hey, I got your phone number. I'm going to write the report now. It's going to be submitted by the end of the day. Worst case scenario, if I forget anything or if I have any more questions for you, I'm going to call you. I might be calling you from a blocked number, so if you do me a favor in the next couple hours, just stand by your phone in case I need any more information, and we'll go from there. And they're like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Boom. Okay, that way they also know to answer a blocked number, because a lot of people don't. Now, moving on to body-worn cameras. You may have this, you may not. Disregard this if you don't. If you do have a body-worn camera, if it's an app on your phone or an app on your computer to document case number and the type of call, I would highly recommend that you do that after every call. So you finish the call, you get back in your car, find the case number from off of your computer system, whatever it is, quickly paste it over into, or copy it down to wherever your app is for your body-worn camera. Put that in, put the type of call, whether it's a code out, it's an arrest, it's a whatever, because what you don't want to do is get to the end of the day, you've been to 20-something calls that day, and yes, you have your CAD system or your system for dispatch, and you can go back and look at your calls, but are you going to be able to remember which video goes to which case number? Are you going to remember if you wrote a report or not? You might not. So I would recommend that you do those after every call if possible, or maybe 2 or 3 calls and then go back, because you can remember back, 30 minutes to an hour, but you might not remember 12 hours later. Or even worse, you forget to do it that entire day. You come back in the next day and those calls get removed from the dispatch CAD system, and then you're stuck asking your trainer, hey, if they're not here, I can't find the old case numbers and what we did. And then they got to go in and search and figure out where they're at. And then you have to also, on top of that, remember which video goes with what case number. You could spend 30 minutes to an hour, maybe even more, trying to figure out your 20 videos. So if you do have a body-worn camera, do it after every call, every other call, every third call. But don't let that get away from you, because that's another thing that your trainer's just going to have to hassle on to help fix and resolve the situation. The more things you can solve yourself and make it look like you're doing well on your own, the better. Okay? The last thing I want to talk about, and one of the most important, I want to leave you guys with this to think about. Would you want yourself as a backup officer responding to that scene? So put yourself in that situation where you're on a call. Everyone has that one officer they know, well, oh man, I hope he doesn't come to my call because he's an idiot, he's dumb, he makes the situation worse, he riles the victim up, the suspect up, he stops me from getting information, he's whatever you want to call him. Don't be that person. So be the backup that helps the person out. If you know the person's making an arrest, you can start on the paperwork. You start with the inmate property receipt. You start with a Vine notification form for domestics or anything related with that. You get a bag and you put all the guy's belongings in there. Anything you can do to help people out, that'll be big. I mean, if your trainer sees you, let's just say a partner's gotten arrested, and your trainer just sees you say, hey, don't worry about the property receipt and the Vine form and this and that. I'm getting it all done right now. I'll be done before you're done with your PC. And then your trainer's going to be like, damn, okay, I want him to be my backup because while I'm trying to write a PC, I'm trying to write a report, do paperwork, he's helped me out with all the little more nuanced things that would slow me down. So do you want yourself as a backup? Are you a good enough backup to your zone deputies? Would you want yourself to be a backup for yourself? So keep that in mind. Just let that sink in. If you're getting ready to go into phase 2, congratulations. You passed. You weren't remediated. I'm glad you're making it this far. Continue to look forward to my next videos being released. And like I said, if you haven't listened to the first phase 1 video or the overview video or the observation report videos, go back, give those a check out. They have a lot of beneficial information. As you see, I've referenced a lot of information from this video to the old one, right? So a lot of good information in there. Deputy Z, signing off. I'll see you guys on the next video. Phase 3, and by the way, Deputy G-Man should be there with us as well. So hopefully y'all will look forward to that.